Hello, my friends, and welcome back to Learning Torah Lishma. We've talked about very touchy topics in Yiddishkeit today, and I believe that we've done a great deal of depth in it. And, we ask Hashem to give us Yat Shmaya to say the right things in the right way, the correct things. And I think Baruch Hashem, overall, we did a good job. I think we touched upon this, but I don't believe that we went in depth in this area, and therefore, here we go. So, when there are people that there are carts, and then there's when you have a train, right? You have the carts that are part of the train, and then you got you got the engine. You got the that pulls the whole train. So there are people that are carts, and there are people that are locomotives, and of course a person can become a locomotive, right? It's a process, right? And one of them is by being a balanced person, you become a locomotive. That's why we talk about the importance of being balanced. If you only learn and you don't work at all, you lose. You become a cart. You don't become a locomotive. So, meaning you could become an advanced cart. You could have you have these like trailers you hook onto your van, and it has brakes, and it could also propel forward. You understand? It drives also a bit. It helps you out. But to become a full locomotive, you got to be able to have excellence in all areas of life, and you need to experience it. Okay, so the question is, so there are people that are carts, and basically they do the truth, and they do things in a very benign way. They under the radar, and they'll just tell their kids everything the Gedolim say we do except for this, things like that, you understand? And they avoid conflict. Now, people that are locomotives, that are actually going to try to create a community that you don't have to hide, and that the full power of the Torah, the full power of truth can come out, you understand? And therefore now, people, when they're doing it, they could do it full force and greatly enhance people's lives and greatly take away the chance of a child leaving God. You understand? It's like night and day. If the community is, if you don't have to hide, you understand that what God says is what the community does. You understand? Which is balance. Then it's that's tachlis. You understand? So there are people that are locomotives, and now they're like, okay, we're gonna go out and create this community. We've talked about it, how to do it, this and that. First you have to get people that want it, at least a minyan of 10 people, of 10 Jewish people that want to keep the Torah. You get them together, and then you move. You open up your own community. Don't do it in a community that don't do it either close by. Move away, an hour away, in a whole different place. Open up your own Jewish community, in a place that doesn't have a Jewish community, so you're not stepping on anybody's toes. That is the safest way to do it. When Hasidus began, one of the big issues is that a lot of the Hasiduses opened up where there was already a Jewish community, and they believed that this is the way and there is no other way. You understand? And this was the issue that happened. Just avoid that issue. Remember, do everything in the most pleasant way possible for yourself, for the people that you're there to guide. You understand? Make everything the most pleasant. Just go to a new place, no Yidden there. You know? You're in Lakewood, go to Delaware. Like that, just, you understand? So, you buy up a few houses together, you get it at a cheaper price, and you start a community. You understand? So, now, person's doing this. Okay. Now, they have family in Lakewood, they have family in Muncie and Borough Park, in KJ, and in Eretz Yisrael here, and Bnei Brak, and Yerushalayim, and you're going to be bumping into people, and don't worry, they're going to find out what you're doing. You understand? And, the unfortunate truth is that the Yetzer Hara is going to make people that, it can even be good people. You understand? He's going to make them think that part of their mission in life is to stop you because you're wrong. You understand? And that's just the reality. You understand? Even though you're not wrong, but it doesn't make a difference if you're not wrong if the person thinks that you are wrong. You understand? So, trying to explain it to him, once a person's older than 30 and you think you're going to change them, especially someone that's over 40, 50, 60, you're not going to change them. You understand? 1 in a million will have the burning desire of emes, of truth, burns in them still, When a person's young, the burning desire of truth is in them. To have that level of burning truth inside of you, and it hasn't just become that this is what you do and that's it. Once you get older, it's very rare. You understand? So, to think you're going to change them, you understand? You're going to try to explain it to them. They're not going to hear you. You understand? And you can't just go explaining to every single person who asks you a question. That's why we make these shiurim. We talk about it, and you could do this as well. Very advisable. And you could say, well, I hear your question, but you have to understand that I can't answer every single person that asks me the question. I made a video about it. Here, it's video, go look for the video. I could try to see if I could remember what number it was, but you could go where I post the videos, and you could look and see, and come back to me after you watched it. You understand? So, usually the person will never come back, and if the person does, you explained it, and, and sometimes they'll have a tricky point to bring up that will be tricky. Well, there are tricky ways to try to trick someone. If you're a leader, you have to be able to, part of being a balanced person is you learn how to not be tricked by people. You understand? That's one of the benefits of being a balanced person. That turns you into a locomotive. So that's that. Now, at the same time, you understand, you have the simple people, let's say, that are following you, and even you could use this method as well. And that is, you don't need to explain to everybody. You could say, you have any questions, it's there. You could say them, come to what I say. Hopefully you make your own content. And you could just say, go look it up. You understand? Don't, you could just say, go read Chayvas Halavavas. Don't always avoid the argument. You could always say, listen, if you want to argue first, I can't do it every single person. Here, go look it up. You understand? And this is the method. Always avoid the fight, because your point in your life, you're supposed to be a happy person, filled with love, filled with, care for every human being, and yes, everybody else comes first, but the second person is you. And the second person doesn't mean that it's nothing. The second most important thing is you, and therefore you got to really be careful to take care of yourself, emotionally, physically, health-wise. You understand? So when you you got to be careful about it. And Hashem doesn't want you to be this tense human being. Now, that is for like 95% of people. That's Hashem doesn't want it. There are people that's who they're made to be. But if you're choosing for yourself what to be, it's better. It's the best life that you could have is to be a happy, jolly, spiritual person. Connected to God, making good money. You understand? That's the real. Of course, there could be people that they might need a bit of a different dose because of who they are. You could have someone that's extremely tense, and that's his nature. He's the brisker of. He's completely tense, and his avodas Hashem is unique. But to expect other people that when they have a choice to decide what they're going to be, that they should decide to be this tense person or decide to be this happy, highly spiritual, highly successful person, the second is the better, not to be the tense. You understand? The latter is the better when you have the choice. If your nature is something that it's, you have to be something else, and you have to figure out how to have balance in that and how to do that, absolutely, But most of us, we have a choice, right? 95% of people, they have a choice. They could decide, am I going to be tense or am I going to be happy and jolly? And of course, a happy and jolly life, when it's not something that you have to be, that is way better for you, for your health, for your connection with Hashem, for your connection with your spouse, for your connection with your kids, v'chulei, 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 for every aspect in your life. So you have to be very careful that the Satan will try to get you people to sit and ask you questions, get you into arguments, because he wants to ruin that. You understand? Because for 95% of people, when you take away the happy jolliness of life, they become destroyed. They're not able to feel proper connection to Hashem. They could learn, but they're not able to learn with love, with the full force love of Hashem. When they work, it's haphazardly. They don't appreciate what they're doing. You understand? So you got to be very careful. And if you're the locomotive, there's a certain amount of you're the locomotive, you're the leader. You got to take on. You might have podcasts, and you take on the different questions, you meet people, you understand, but at the same time you also have the power to limit it, because you record the classes and you say, go look it up, go look at my website when I talk about this, or wherever you posted it. You understand? So that's that. But for the simple person, just you could say, you just have to not allow the person to get into conversation with you about that. And they could try, but you just don't allow it. You understand? If they keep pushing, you could just tell them, it's already the third time that they do the same thing. When you said you don't want to talk about it, if you have any questions, go ask my rabbi. You understand? Here's his website. Here's, look him up. You understand? I am not the rabbi. I'm a person in the community. You understand? And if they cannot respect that, and they do it again and again and again, then you just have to cut ties. But sometimes it has to be a complete cut. Other times it's just, I love you. Sometimes it's just like a cut, and you just have to completely ignore the person, 100%. You have to see what the situation is. Other times it's I only say hello to you. That's it. We have when we meet, especially if it's a family member, we have we're cordial. I'll be cordial to you, but just to let you know, if you start asking questions, if you start on anything, because once they'll start asking about your kids, and then they'll get back into it. You understand? I'm going to completely ignore you. I'm just going to say hello, and that no one, just to be cordial, but that's it. And if you can't do that, then I'm going to completely disconnect from you. You understand? So that's that. Now, the person's attitude, and this is especially for the locomotive. You understand? The leader. Your attitude needs to be tremendous positivity and tremendous wanting good for everybody, but at the same time realizing reality. That if someone, you know, people that want the truth, people that don't and think they have the truth, you're not there to waste all your time trying to convince people. Rather, the people that their minds are not blocked and are open for the emes, the full power, the full truth of Hashem, the full love of Hashem, the people that are ready for that, that's your focus, where you should put all your energy. Not to change people, but it's on the people that realize it. And once you have a healthy community, you'll see that healthiness will just spread out. Not because the people will just see, wow, these people are connected to Hashem, they love Hashem, they have good children, they have good marriages, they're successful, some of them make a lot of money, each person according to his success. And people will just say, you know what, I want to be that, and you won't have to convince them. Your focus is to create and put all your energy into the people that want it. That's where your focus is. And at the beginning, yes, in the beginning of it, you're more focusing on looking for people that our minds are still opened, and that you could tell the truth to them and see if they accept it or not. They might have questions, and you have to, as a locomotive, you need to know how to, you can't just know the truth but not be able to prove it, to explain it, to show how this is what Chazal say, that our sages tell us to do. You have to be able to prove it. You understand? And not just prove it because a saying in Chazal, but also logically. You understand why you just see that this is the truth. You understand? So that's your job as a locomotive. And after you create a community, now your main focus is that community, which is at least 10 people, you understand? 10 adult people, you understand? 10, especially, right, you need to have a minyan, the power of a minyan, right? A community, at least you need to have a minyan. So you need a minyan, and yes, if they're not married, you got to get them married. You understand? You're not creating a group of losers that follow Hashem. You want to create a group of winners that follow Hashem. So yes, this is. It requires a lot of work, but once you create the infrastructure, you focus on the infrastructure, and that's where the main focus is. And yes, you also go out and try to see if you could, other people that might be that they're still young enough that they're able to hear the truth, or someone that's still the truth, the power of truth is still coursing in their veins. When people get older, they lose that. It's just, it's all about, not being embarrassed, being part of the community, and what's the word? Just become, just do what everybody does, not so nothing should happen, and that type of person, but sometimes you do find someone that's older and they still have the power of truth is still coursing through them. Lots of times, Balei Tshuva, you understand? They realize they're outside in this world of the Goyim, and it's hectic. You understand? It's, you know, you don't want to live there. You don't want your family to be brought up in that. This is what the the person, someone that's not yet following Hashem, this is what he's thinking. He doesn't want that type of life. Like kids, you have to worry about drugs and all these things. You want a community that's that you don't have all these issues. You understand? And that you could focus on greater things. You understand? Making them in love with Hashem, deep connection with Hashem, being rich and using and being successful, having a gorgeous wife, having a handsome husband that could support you. You understand? Again, today usually need both, but a husband that he really wants to, and he's working towards it, and eventually he'll get there. And many wives today, they're not lazy, and they also want to make something. They'll be a teacher, so something on the side, and they're also make money. A lot of times, you female drivers. You have a 15, let's say, car service, Jewish car service, and they want female drivers for girls. To give that option. You understand? Or a girls' school, they need a driver. You say, you get a license for a bus, or you get to buy a 15-seater van. All these different things that happen, in the community. And, she's not really going outside into the dirty world, you understand? But she's making money within the community, and, amongst other from Yidden, and it's pure, and, you don't want your wife to get all dirty, she's not meant for that, she's meant to be full of love and nurture the kids, and, and take care of you and bring your spirits up. You understand? So, yes, this, and it's very important that, we talked about that, if someone just doesn't, you could have someone that's, he's considered to be very great, but he doesn't understand that the idea of Kaila, which I say that, from what I see, especially today, the idea of Kaila, it's something that's meant for, well, let me put it this way. The Torah says the idea of Kaila is meant for in a regular world, right? We don't have a Nanei Kavod. We don't have, we're not built in the regular world that we live. According to the statutes of the Torah, you need to be balanced. You can't just say just learning. Now, could there be an exception to the rule? Absolutely. But to take that exception and now say that applies to everybody, that's incorrect. Now, I say, and I'm not, I'm just saying but what I, because the Torah, when it comes to that exception to the rule, you could either say, well, let's see if we could have him full-time learn. You understand? I say that you could do that, right? But I say that he should also have a few hours in the day that he works. Half a day he works. There's 9 to 5, so either the morning or the afternoon he works. He should work some. Because it will give him the balance. It'll make him a locomotive, like we said before, and we explained in other shiurim. So now, if someone wants to say no, he should fully learn. Okay, in this area, I think the Torah goes both ways. For that exception, and each leader, according to his wisdom and understanding, this just to give direction for someone that's not under you, tell him to go to his rabbi. No, but if there's someone that's following you and you're his rabbi, you're his mentor, then you need to you need to shots up the situation. You take a deep look into what's happening and decide what to do. I would normally say you need to work sometime if you're one of these people that are exception to the rule. Other people, like, probably any other rabbi today would say, you'd say, no, learn full time, because they really think everybody should do that. You understand? That's their ideology, which both are, I think both are true. I believe what I said is better. You understand? But that depends on where this person, who he made his rabbi. You understand? That depends on what he did. That's the decision where he put himself, and that's what comes out of his decision of which group does he follow. You understand? So if he's following me or someone that's following these, what we believe that the Torah is saying, I believe that this is better. But if they're following some other one that learning, they're just, they don't see anything else. Torah is the greatest, which it is. But you also have to realize we're on this world and there's something called balance. They don't realize that so clearly, so they're probably going to tell you to learn full time. You understand? And that's, that depends where you put yourself, on what answer you're going to get. And if you want to change it, then you got to join the other community. You understand? You can't say, I'm going to follow this rabbi. If you're following him, that means when it comes to crucial questions in life, you follow him, especially when it comes to crucial things. And this is a crucial decision in life. So if you got to decide where you are. You understand? Now, again, we talked about there's this you're not a locomotive, and you have to, you're living in the community, so you keep your hush about certain things, like like we discussed. That could be different. But if you're then that's different. But if you're someone that's like, no, this is right, and so that's then you're like full force in following, then you need to follow. You understand? Life is the biggest lesson. You understand? Life is the biggest lesson, and we hope people don't wait to the last second to learn the lesson. You see you learn it early on. There's early signs, and we hope everybody learns things early on. Now, for a regular person, unless there are people that are just born to be the brisker of, that intensity, you understand. But for regular people that are becoming locomotives, you understand, and also for regular people, you understand. But my chiddush is, even for locomotives, even if someone he's going to be having huge responsibilities, becoming a locomotive. You need to be jolly and happy. Very important. And I'm going to give you how. Because we have a big issue here. You have all these today, at least, I don't know when you're hearing this, but I'm talking about what exists today. Almost every rabbi and every rebbe in any school, any type of Jewish school, even like the Chafetz Chaim schools, you understand? They're the Chafetz Chaim at best is saying a few years kailal. I would say balance right away. You understand? But they're saying a few years kailal. And that's from what I last heard. Now today, I don't know. Maybe they're full kailal today. I don't know. Maybe they're like full kailal for some people, but a few years for others. So, anybody you're going to talk to about this is going to tell you the wrong thing. You understand? And that could be very vexing and bring a person down. How you don't want to look bad. It's not healthy to look down upon people. It's not healthy for you, for your soul. It's not healthy, especially when you're trying to be a locomotive, create from community. It's not healthy to look down upon people. So how do you go about this? How do you not become this tense individual and negative of so many people when, like, everybody around you, including the simple people that follow them, they're all brainwashed into this: money will come from heaven, don't worry, just learn and everything will work out. Your wife will make money, this, that, money will just come. How could you be happy in that situation? I'm going to give you the trick. First is just be happy, right? There are many truths that you know, and you don't have to think about them all the time. You acquire a truth, but if you think about that constantly, then that will hurt you. But so you don't say, well, that's not true. No, that's true. And I don't think about it. I think about other things. I think about the chesed that happens. Think about the good things that they do. And this is the main tactic. You don't have to focus just because, someone in an aspect, even though it's something so egregious and so big and it's causing so much damage, you don't have to. You could focus on the chesed they do, that the will inside of them to do good, even though they're messing it up, what actually good is, you understand? But you could focus on the good. And as a leader, you need to have that ability. Right? Meni elef, right? What do we say in the beige area? It says, right, it's that little Yehiratza wants to say at the end, Meni elef, that Hashem looks for the 1 in 1,000, the positive 1 in 1,000, you understand? And then he judges you for life. That's how you have to be with people. You have to look for the Meni elef and say, that's what I focus on. I realize the truth, and because of that, I'm going to work to create a good community. Or if you're not a locomotive, then you're like, I will, in a quiet way, tell my kids that balance is what's important, but don't say that to anybody, and just learn how to read, learn how to learn Gemara. But when you get older, we're going to, you're going to be going out. I'm going to, acclimate you to the working world and being a spiritual person with tremendous dveikus to Hashem. You understand? But that's later. Right now, just make believe that anything they say you agree with, and later on, you understand. But you know that when it comes the time that you need to become balanced, because you're not sending out an 8-year-old into the working force. You understand? That's it's just you're not doing that, and that would be wrong to do. You understand? So there's a time later on, and it's not just when they turn 18. Now you acclimate them. No, when they get older and they have enough sense. You do things, of course, everything legal, but you teach you teach them. Say, okay, now you're going to mow the lawn. You're going to do this. Different things. Children have different abilities. Some like woodworking, some like this and that, and you slowly. It's not just when they turn 18 all of a sudden, you teach them everything. You start teaching them a few years before, each child according to who they are. And then you continue to teach them. But that happens later. But don't, but you have to, but all this is hush hush, you understand? For people that, that there isn't a locomotive yet that they could join on to, you understand? For the full power of truth and love of the Torah that we discussed. So you need to keep positive. It's extremely important. And yes, in the shiurim I'll go on to and explaining in depth of of why this is so egregious, and a person could just get all upset and forget about happiness for the rest of his life. And I go back and say, well, this is what you could do to fix it. Why am I doing that? Because saying that there's a problem and not taking the time to figure out the solution is pretty weak. You understand? So we go into the solution. And the solution is not rocket science, but you need a locomotive. You understand? You need someone that has the plates, that has the shoulders to bear it. You understand? Not everybody has such, it's big plates. Not everybody can. But there are definitely many that can, and they need to step up, and carry the dark, carry the people that they're thirsty for the truth. You understand? And there's wonderful women. You need to marry them. There's a lot of people. I've personally met a lot of people that, if they were married, they're not married, so they can't, especially in Yiddishkeit, there's nothing you could do if you're not married. But if they were married, they could be saving hundreds of, like 100,000, hundreds of 100,000 people. They could easily in 5 years save bring 100,000 Yidden to Yiddishkeit and save 100,000 Yidden from going off. Easily. But because they don't have a wife, with the Shidduch process, the whole system, they can't. And they live their life, and some never get married. Some, by the time they get married, they're so destroyed by the system that they just can't do it. You understand? So this is what's happening today. This is the truth, unfortunately. So the women have to marry these people that want to, women have to know in general, marry a Yid, just marry. You understand? Go out, marry, coffee dates. You understand? But a woman has to be smart. If she could marry someone, she should be on the lookout for someone that really wants to do something big. And you have to talk with the person. You can't figure that out talking through the shotgun. You understand? You gotta meet the person. Go on a coffee date. Stop with all the resume. Meet them. When you find someone that really wants to do big things for Klal Yisrael, you understand? Women should jump on that. You give him the ability. Without you, he can't do it. Try to do it. It's just not going to work. So women need to realize that, and I can just tell you, I've met so many, and I've met people that are 18 all the way up to older ages, really old. You understand? That because they don't have a wife, they can't do it. You understand? They just can't. That's the reality. So this is another thing. Now, I want to also, when you're looking at a person that is doing it, right? You could have someone, you have to look at it that it's not him. But he's telling everybody to do this, right? And he's telling everybody to live this imbalanced life. And you have to know it's a demon taking him over. Never look at the person that he is evil, that he is the source. He's not. He's being tricked. And therefore, understand that don't look at him that he is the mistake that he's making. Rather, he's being possessed by a demon. And in this way, also, this is extremely, what we said before is extremely true, and you need to put extra strength on it with this, that he is not evil. And the person could come to you and say, no, I disagree with you. I think you're Russia because you're telling people to do balanced life. Just learn full time. You understand? Just learn full time. And I've been preaching this for 10 years and I'm going to continue. And in your mind, you're like, no, it's just a demon. That's it. It's just a demon. And he's going to scream at you, and you could just say to him, listen, I know you're saying it, but to me, I don't believe that that inherently is you. Right? You might not tell him that it's a demon. In your mind, you know that, but I believe that you're being tricked somehow. I don't believe that it's you. And he says, no, it is me. And he can get into a fist fight, No, it is me. He can punch you in the face. No, it is me. No, it's not. It's not him. And that's it. It's not him. And that's the truth. He is being tricked by the Yetzer Hara. His essence, he has a chelik l'kamal. His soul comes from God, and God is truth, not false, and that is not him. That's it. He could be in a deep trick from the Yetzer Hara. The demon can have a huge control over him, but it's still not him. You understand? Now, because the demon has a control of him, you can't allow him to really speak in your community. You understand? There are things, even though it's not him, doesn't mean now he gets a free pass. But it's not him. And that's what you has to be so clear in your mind. Everything we said now is coming to this pinnacle point. This is the point that I wanted to bring out. You in your mind have to know he's a tzaddik. It's not him. It's not him. It's really not him. He's being possessed. These are not my words. This is what the Gemara says. When a person does, if you see someone do a sin, it's a ruach shtus. It's some type of possession that's happening to him, but it's really not him. These are not my words. This is what the Gemara says. Everything I say, I don't bring that every single thing because it would make the shir way too long. But I'm all basing it on what the teachings of our sages tell us. It's a ruach shtus. It's not really him. But he's doing it for 10 years, and he's going to continue to do it for the rest of his life. And he's going to hurt thousands and thousands of people. Hundreds of thousands of people. It's true, it's terrible what he's doing. And I'll try to save as much people as I can. And yes, I might have to speak up that this is wrong. But I do not believe that that's really him. It's a ruach shtus. He's being possessed. This is so important. As a positive person, this is the way you need to think. And not just this is the way you need to think, but it's the truth. I would say, even if it wasn't true, think this way, right? Let's say Hashem gave the person the ability to actually become evil. To turn the chelik l'kamim into evil, right? Which he doesn't give us that ability. He just allows us to put coverings over it. But let's say he did, I would say still only believe that he's possessed. You understand? Know that really that's not true, but I'm doing that because that's, first of all, the healthiest way I could live life. It doesn't mean you do anything less to help those people that he's hurting. You understand? And to try to negate and not give him the power to do what he wants to do. Right? Doesn't mean you don't do that. Of course you do it. But me thinking that he's evil, it's not healthy for me. Even if it wasn't true, it happens to be that it is true. So I would say, but let's say, right? So again, let's say Hashem gave the ability for a person to turn his soul evil. I would still say, only believe that he's possessed, even though it's not true. First, it's not true, but you're going to be going with that because that's what's going to maximize your abilities. Being in this negative realm is the worst thing for a person, for almost everybody, 95% of people. It's very not good. You understand? Could be a briskrov, an exception, but I'm just saying, for 95% of people, this is not good. Now, we have the extra bonus that Hashem in His wisdom made it, that this is the truth, right? Right? This is the truth, that he really is possessed. That's what the Gemara tells us. A ruach shtus. It's really not him. He can have mountains of dirt on top of him. But that doesn't mean that that's him. That's just mountains of dirt. but it's still not him. Yes, I have to be careful because he's a puppet in this aspect of the Yetzer Hara. So I have to be careful, and I have to, you have to be careful, absolutely. But there's a difference when you're being careful and you're saying that person's evil than when you're saying he's possessed. You're doing the same action, but it's a totally different way of looking at him. When you say that person's evil, you're saying that that he is evil. But when you're saying he's possessed, you're saying he has a soul that shines from one end of the world to the next. And I wish you would bring it out. It's a completely different way of looking at it. Completely different way. And not only is that important for you to do, and it's true, so we don't have to make believe, but it's also important for that person. Because if there's anything that's going to change him, God could change him by doing things to him. You understand? But you're not God. And you're not allowed to do those things. If there's anything that you could do to change him, is to just say, in that aspect, I just think it's a ruach shtus. I think you're possessed. I don't believe it's you, but you should just know, I see your soul that shines from one side of the world to the next. If there's anything that's going to change him, it's that. And that's the way you need to think. I love you, and Hashem loves you more.